Not bad. All right,
What's
here we
going on,
go.
my man?
Man, good to be here again. Again, because we've had so many chats like this. Now we're on something a little more official that we're going to share. It's just the two of us today. We're missing our third man, but he'll be joining us in a few episodes, I think. But yeah, dude, episode one.
First podcast. Let's kick it off. What are we talking about today?
So, our inaugural episode, I just want to start by talking about why we started this podcast and a little bit about what our vision is for doing this. It's intertwined with the idea of a vision, which is the topic that we're going to be talking about. But let's open just by talking about our reasons for doing the podcast. Uh, Go ahead. Why are we doing this podcast?
Yeah, so for the reasons that I've talked to you about and that we both share is directly correlated to the first video we got here. It's establishing a vision in the world and being able to distill our life experiences and put them out into the greater reality, the macro world. We've been living kind of in our own smaller constructs, and by being able to put a podcast out there, share our words, it's a way to be a part of the greater system here. And we got a lot to share, so that's why we're here.
Amen. Yes. Yeah, man. As we've had so much fun, so much joy in these conversations over the years, the 8 or 9 years that we've been since we met and we've been doing this. And now, for me, as I'm getting more active and involved and taking, just being more involved in the world and putting myself out there more and engaging, I found so much meaning and happiness. And I want to share with other people what I've learned because we're literally right in the thick of it. We're building meaningful lives. So there's no better place from which to share those insights. And that's why I'm here. I want to share that and I want to see what people think about that and just
Yeah.
engage.
Yeah, I think for us, it's like, we're on our build, or we're on the path of building rather than kind of being already at the top of the pyramid. And
Yes.
there's value in being able to present, like show the path of development to that higher ground, where
In real
maybe some
time.
of these other, yeah, in real time, like, some of these other podcasts that got big names, maybe it's just like these people already had established themselves in the world, so they already have this sort of like deviation from the general populace. But for us, it's like we're kind of trying to, we're trying to show the path as we get there, and
Yes.
also we're growing along the way. It's really just about growth at the end of the day, and
Yes.
being able to impact the world in whatever ways our words and our wisdom and our relationship can do so.
Oh man, can't wait to get Brant in here. This is going to be awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the topic of our inaugural episode. So,
Let's do it.
what do we mean by cultivating a vision? What do we mean by that? Is a vision a goal? Is a vision a dream? Is it something more broad? Is it something more specific? What exactly do we mean by cultivating a vision?
Yeah, this is literally what my life has revolved around for the past few years now. As you gain your footing in the world, there comes a point along the adult path where you kind of begin to question life to a deeper degree. As we grow up through adolescence and teenage years, it's kind of like, we're partying or whatever. We're really absorbed in the physical world through our senses, through, our impulses, and we don't have that real like awareness developed yet. We're just purely driven more so from like primal instincts. And that soon begins to be questioned as we get into adulthood. And once we get into adulthood, we get to that point of being like, where are we really going in our lives? You know, what is our path? What do we want? And what is actually ours? Like what has actually what are out of what we are doing in our lives, what is actually just a byproduct of something else that's been implanted in us by society, by our friends, by our parents? You know, it's really just getting to the core of like who we are and where we want to go. And once you get to that point, there's the question of, well, what's my vision in life? What it is that, where is the aim? Where is the target? And am I facing in that direction? Like, you know, we could have an aim that's facing north or that's north, but we're facing south. You know what I mean? Like we could be facing in a completely different direction and just veering off the path farther and farther and farther until we get so far away that it just doesn't feel aligned anymore. So this is kind of the foundational thing for me with a vision. It's distilling what is ours and where we're heading, where we're aiming. I'll leave it there for right now and just get your take on it.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And it's such a great question just to contemplate. Just asking that question, like, what does it mean to have a vision, creates all sorts of other useful questions and insights. And one of the things that you said, it has you think more deeply about what it is that we are. That was one of the big turning points for me in life is starting to ask that question of like what it is that we are, like who we essentially are, and that matters a great deal in the direction that you go. Because when you start to have this awareness that you are not your body, you are not your possessions, you're not your lifestyle, you have relationships, but you are not your relationships. You have money, but you are not your money. And even you have thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. The more you see that those are things that you engage with, but what you are is more essential than that, you start to see that all of these aspects of experience are things that you can arrange in a way that's meaningful. And doing that arrangement is like cultivating a vision. Like what do you want to do by arranging those things? And that's what it has started to mean to me. Um, it's yeah, having a vision is absolutely critical for a thriving life. And that brings me to another question, to the next question, I guess, or the next topic is, why do we suffer so much without a vision? I think this is something that we can both relate to heavily.
Yeah.
I think it's something that a lot of people
This.
can relate to heavily. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I want to get into that. I want to get into why is it that we suffer so much? You know, we go through that experience that you're talking about, where we just kind of get molded by our circumstances when we're young. It's
Yeah.
almost inevitable for people. But then at a certain point, when you don't have a vision, as you continue to go through life, things can get very difficult. So why do we suffer so much without a vision?
Yeah. It coincides with what is the importance of a vision, why it's important. I was having a conversation with a woman yesterday. She was in her 50s, had kids, born in Singapore, and at 17 years old, she wanted to leave Singapore. She wanted to leave Singapore so bad. And as you know, there's a very specific way how Chinese are raised, usually with their parents and whatnot. You know, it tends to be a very strict household, and she wanted to break free from that. And she knew the only way that to do that was to tell her dad that she was going to be an architect, so he would send her to America. So she did it, and it worked. That was her vision. And then she got stuck as being an architect for the next 40 plus years, and she says how, how unhappy she is in that job force, in that corporate world, and how beating it can be. I mean, I don't have any personal experience, but from the words she's shared, I can understand how that atmosphere can just be degrading. But it's fascinating how, to me, how she had the vision, it worked, and then the vision stopped. She stopped pursuing further growth or further, asking herself what it is she wanted. She realized that, she told me, she realized that she just did that because it was actually pleasing her father. So it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about a little bit before, but just wanted to lay that story out. But the importance of having a vision and why it creates suffering if we don't, is, especially for men, which is a whole different topic, is the essence of we are, there's many different ways we can go with this. There's a biological component, right? We have a biological nature to secure, provide, protect. It's just in our bones that drives us, and we need to have an aim for that. There needs to be a path forward for resources and protection. Roofs over our head and things like that. But in nowadays, we're starting to enter ultimate abundance. Universe 25. Sort of. If you've heard of that, have you heard of Universe 25?
What is that?
It's a wild experiment. I don't know. It was done in like the early 1900s. It was done with basically creating an environment for mice to live in abundance. There was no predators, no food, or abundant amount of food, and it studied how the social structure began to break down with overabundance. The
Fascinating.
mice started not be able to have roles in society, or find their roles. They stopped, reproducing. Um, Children or mothers started to eat their children and crazy shit like that. But it's been talked about really a lot nowadays, and how there's similarities beginning to develop in our world because of the overabundance. But anyway, let me just wrap this up. The importance of having a vision is that if you want to be self-sovereign, you need to develop that vision yourself. You need to be conscious of choosing your own path and taking on that responsibility, because if you don't, then you will be a byproduct of someone else's vision. And that is entirely possible if you're genuinely happy with that and you don't want to take that responsibility on for yourself. But the ultimate path in life is to choose your own destiny, or to at least pursue your own destiny to the fullest degree. And you need to have a vision, and a vision is essentially a target. It's having a place in the future that you want to go to. And I think there's been a lot of misconceptions, and there's just been a negative connotation wrapped around desire and future-minded thinking with Buddhism and things like that, that tells us desire is the root of all suffering, which is something we can unpack. But what about you? What's the importance of having a vision? I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah.
just finished the book. I mean, that's a huge vision.
Yes, man. Great insights. From my side, the way that I have come to see it, pain is inevitable in life. We are all going to experience suffering and pain no matter how we live. It's a universal thing. Life's going to have its ups and downs. There's going to be hardship. A great quote from the anime Jujutsu Kaisen is, "The only thing equally granted to all is an unfair reality." And I believe no matter how you're born, no matter what circumstances you're born into or who you are, that maxim will hold true. You will face difficult circumstances, but when you have a clear idea of something intensely desirable, something that really connects with you and feels meaningful to you, a future that you think is worth building, like a target, a vision, then most people can endure tremendous suffering on the way to that goal. You're going to experience some hardship anyway, but you can, with a vision, you can give a ton of meaning to the suffering that you experience. For example, the book that I was writing, yeah, man, there's some layers to that. I mean, there was a lot of pain going through the process of writing that book, because I didn't know how to do it. I'd never written a book before. So I had to learn a lot of things, very vulnerable, some, of course, a lot of challenges to my ego. Like sometimes I felt like there were such silly things that I didn't know how to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to learn how to do this trivial little thing. And I would spend like, like a couple hours thinking about like, well, what's the font going to be? And like things like that. Like you have to overcome a lot of things. So the vision of getting that book out there pulled me through a lot of those things, and it ended up just writing the book and finishing it. It's right back there. Is one of the most meaningful things to me that I've ever done. Um, but yeah, even in a broader sense, like the reason that I wrote the book, it helped me to connect with something, with a problem that I believe, something that we can improve in the world. And before, it was like there's just this big problem, and for a long time I didn't engage with it. But then I developed a vision. I asked myself, like, is there a way for me to engage with this in a meaningful and constructive way instead of just kind of being a victim, seeing this from like a victim mentality? And when I started to cultivate like a more positive vision, then the book was born. So yeah, having that, it can really help us put the suffering and the pain that we experience into a meaningful frame. And it can also
Yeah.
give us, yeah, it can give us a ton of more energy as well. I felt a lot more energy in my life
I
since I cultivated
I
that.
think I think it's where maybe, we should be putting a little more emphasis on actually how important this is to have a fulfilling life, to have a vision. This
Yeah.
simple, I just drew this. So it reminds me of like the Pink Floyd, lo,
Their
it,
logo, their
their
emblem.
logo. So it's like, we have these past memories and experiences converging to the present moment, and then we're the prism in which the future then gets projected out. And these are kind of like the infinite possibilities of life. And you know how in the Pink Floyd, it's kind of like the darkness comes in and then it's rainbow after it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the darkness of the past is coming into the present through our prism of consciousness in the present moment, and then gets projected out into the beautiful future that we are. That is the turning point of our lives, is when we stop being a slave to the past and all that programming, and we use the present moment to project a completely different reality that is based on all the greatness and beautiful things that we know to be available to us in life. There's in one of Kevin Trudeau's podcasts or videos, he has the phrase where it's like a man will fail, in some degree if he doesn't have a vision. He'll just become another mundane commonality. It's you're falling into that sort of rat race sort of dynamic when you don't have that vision. And usually the vision comes, or the desire to change and develop that vision does come through suffering. It comes through being fed up with the suffering, with the pain, with the bullshit that we endure, that we've kind of been bred to endure. There's a degree in which it makes us strong. We're resilient creatures, but to what degree do we, abide by that that pressure that is just not natural or not productive at the end of the day. And there's usually a flip of a switch that will happen, hopefully, that we allow ourselves to take place and get into this state of a different future. Now, let's talk about, because creating a vision is one thing, and then there's the application of that vision. There's the determination, the discipline, and this is gonna, we probably won't have enough time today to talk about it, but this taps into the esoteric sort of side of life of when you hold a vision in your minds, we are essentially creating reality. But let's just talk about developing and holding the awareness of a vision. So let's go back to your book and run us through how A to Z, how like you created this vision, whenever that was, and then just like the execution of it, how that road looked, how it felt, getting through maybe some of the sticky spots and bringing it to fruition.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just a couple things based on what you were saying. Absolutely, man. Agency is the truth of the world. Self-sovereignty. We are individual beings with our own agency. There's no getting around that. And we are trained to surrender a lot of that agency and be products of society. There's a host of very subtle, powerful influences that guide us to give away our creative potential. And there's not so many strong, good influences to be unique and be creative. There's a lot of people out there. If you don't have a vision, they're happy to make you a means to their ends. For sure, that's the truth that we live in. So, 100% agree with you. But
Can I just say one thing?
yeah, yeah, of course.
I just want to say one. I just want to say that there is purpose. Like it's not all malevolent, right? Like if someone isn't taking responsibility or whatever for their lives of wanting to choose their own path, it's okay to kind of fall into someone else's. That's just a natural thing. It gives that person still purpose by being of service to someone else's vision.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some of the best things are when you're inspired by somebody who's doing their own thing. Another person can also guide you. That's the only way that I learned to cultivate a vision is by watching somebody else do it. And thankfully, I encountered meaningful teachers who were more about inspiring other people to live their vision. But absolutely, yeah. If you're someone can bring you on a very beautiful ride. But the more we cultivate that, the more these beautiful vistas of possibility in life open up. The challenge of taking on the responsibility is well worth it. The rewards are just amazing. So that being said, kind of walk you through the vision for the book. So in the beginning of 2025, I'm working corporate world, automotive manufacturing. And I've done this now for, 8 out of 10 years. I've spent working in corporate automotive. And I had the idea that I wanted to do something about institutionalized coercion. That's always been important to me. It's always been a thing. I think the way that we organize society, we've institutionalized coercion and aggression, mostly through government action. And I think that there are better, more voluntary ways to do it. So I decided in early 2025 that I wanted to make my own contribution. I wanted to put something out there, my own content, and I decided that I was going to do a book. So the idea kind of came to me in full,
Let's
all
take
at
me
once.
through. Hold on. Take me through the decision process. Like how does deciding on a vision like that look for you? Is it, you know, have you ever reflected on that? And is it something that is just like, immediate, or is there deep contemplation? What does that look like inside?
Well, That's a good question. It was something that was boiling up for a long time. It's been meaningful to me for most of my adult life. So I've been even taking notes on the topic, reading hundreds of books on political philosophy and organization of society. So it definitely been boiling up and just percolating in my being for a long time. Not a new idea for me, but this was really a point where I had become more intentional and more willing to be vulnerable and put myself out there. And I think just kind of had a convergence of these ideas. I'd had a long time to think about them and develop some of my own original insights. And then I that kind of like development of original insights converged with my understanding that it's better to take a risk. It's better to go out and live. Like I kind of had I got the idea that it's better to live a creative way, to put something creative out there. So
So
I decided, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
so you made it the choice. Like, how did the choice flip on for you? Like, when you was there a moment in time where you were like, you said this has been something that's been brewing for quite a bit in your life, and maybe you had a little inkling that, oh, I'm gonna write a book one day, but there was this opening that happens in your life, and you were like, I'm gonna write a book right now. So what was that internal process like?
Yeah,
Like, I know you're
yeah.
describing it, but like, was there a moment in time where you were just like, I'm doing this?
There was. So I think to decide, like decide literally means like to cut off the other possibilities and to
That,
say, I'm going to
yeah.
go this direction to the exclusion of all other directions. And that's really what I did. I was literally in this room and thinking about where I wanted to go, and I decided like the idea really came to me like in whole. I am going to save up my money for the next few months. This was like the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. And then I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to write this book. I'm going to use these months to write my first book. And I decided in that moment, and I'm telling you, I could see over in this corner a stack of books sitting there, a stack of this book that I was going to make. I could see it clearly in my mind, and that's kind of what I cultivated. I made the decision, I'm going to do it, and I could see like this book. I could see promoting the book and stuff, and
Okay.
I
So,
put it right there. Yeah.
all right. So there's a lot of gems right there. This is This is honestly probably one of the best ways to like to just kind of show to anyone and to myself of like what a vision is from beginning to end, the importance of it and the execution of it. So when you decided, and maybe this has been something that has come easy to you in life, chopping off. I am fascinated by the etymology of decide, the word, like
Yeah.
the meaning is it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So when you decided to write a book, chopping off all possibilities of other paths, is there a feeling, what is the sensation you get? Is there a sense of like clarity that comes through, or is there a sense of like, like regretfulness or remorse around potentially like opportunity cost around like, what else you could be doing with that time or the other avenues that you're chopping off? Is there any sort of dilemma there for you?
Yeah, yeah. So there's always an opportunity cost because you're doing it to the exclusion of all other things. There's a lot of possibilities, but I wouldn't say it's something that comes naturally easy, but there is something that helped me to deal with that. And it's taking more of like a broad growth mindset in life and realizing that if I'm setting a purposeful goal and deciding to move down this path, then that growth in general is good. like I'm moving down that path and I'm going to learn a ton of things. So there's a meta aspect to it. There's this meta aspect that if I decide and I go down this path and I achieve this goal, all of the learnings that I get along the way will make me a more powerful person who's able to achieve more goals in the future. And I've found that to be true. Every time I've decided to do something and then gone down this difficult path of doing it, there's really a meta skill that gets developed. There's actually a meta muscle of setting a vision and getting it
Yeah.
done. It's not just writing a book, not just following an exercise plan, not just achieving a goal at work, but really it's a meta skill of I'm going to set this vision. I'm going to learn how to be bad at something. I'm going to learn how to suck at it. Like I sucked at writing a book because I'd never done it, but once I did it, then it's like, okay, like your eyes adjust to the darkness. You learn how to be bad at stuff, and that's a meta skill, and then it helps you in the future. So that kind of having that mindset really played into it a lot for me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the I think a lot of people, myself included, have had trouble with making decisions in life. And in reality, the inability, the indecision stifles us more than, let's say, the wrong decision, because there is essentially no wrong decision at the end of the day.
Yes.
It's it's so let's distill kind of your experience here in writing the book and kind of just build a general framework that maybe anyone can kind of use for themselves. So first, what I'm hearing is there's a thread you followed that has been alive throughout your life that has given you a sense of excitement or joy, which in your case was, through impact and through politics and through just you seeing the world for what it is and seeing it in a way that is not as helpful as it can be to the humanity.
Yeah.
And then also take your love of reading for and combining the two. So that kind of was the building blocks, the foundation that laid this, and you followed that thread. And then you got to this moment in life where you were kind of like at a crossroads, or you were at a fork. You were at a turning point where I think this was kind of towards the end of your relationship, right? Or like a little
That's
bit
right.
after, and
Yeah.
you were
Yep.
leaving your work. There was like this opening, you could say. And I think there's value in understanding how putting ourselves into just a different path that we've been on up until that point creates space for something else to come in, creates space for something to fill that void. In your case, you chose the book to fill that, to be your new path that you were taking on. And through that decision process, it's recognizing the opportunity costs that come with it, and that deciding is consciously cutting off the other possible avenues.
Yep.
And you said you had a vision. Like, did you have a like kind of end point in sight, or was this more of kind of just moving from the present moment and going in a direction that you just felt aligned to? Was there like
No,
an actual, what's that?
yeah, yeah, man. I began with the end in mind in this case. So I really, the vision was clear that I was going to write and publish a book, and I even anchored to that by I booked a spot at the Libertarian National Convention, a booth like a year in advance, and I told myself by this day my book will be published, printed, and I'll be bringing physical copies. I'm going to, go to this booth and I'm going to peddle this
Yeah,
book. So I anchored to it. I really began with that end in mind, and that was when times got
that's really
tough.
cool.
Yeah,
That is really cool. It's kind of like the drawing that I had before. It's like the present, and then we have our past experience is coming into the present, and then the
Right.
future is actually coming ahead of us to the back to the present. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a converging into that center point from both directions, and the future, it can only converge to the present as far as we can see into the future. So as far as like our dreams and our aspirations can reach. So by envisioning, by pushing our boundaries of what we can envision for ourselves, by thinking beyond the basics, it allows us to grow mentally and being able to comprehend and being able to hold space for a greater reality. So that's why it's very important to, be around minds and people that have achieved great things if you so desire to be on that path, because it's going to force your mind to expand to that level. It's like, the tree rings. It's how far can those tree rings go? How wide can you really grow is what
Yes.
it's revealing. So fascinating, very fascinating how all this works. Now, we're connecting the importance of decision to vision, how intertwined they are. And I think I'd like to kind of transition into how we create visions, how how we
Yeah.
develop them.
Yes.
Because this enters the infinite field, like this enters infinite possibility, you could say. We have a mind that can envision anything. So how do we choose and how do we define it? And I think the most practical way for anyone to go on this path of beginning to choose their vision of their life moving forward is to start simple, even though that might be contradictory to what I just said about expansion. But I think, there's a level in which growth takes time and patience. Nature shows us that left and right. So I don't know if you agree with that, but as we continue to walk the path of living life and living it to the fullest, there's an essence of realizing that most of people's growth that might appear quick actually was compounding for years and years and years and years and years. I think it's very akin to, I think, how bamboo grows. I mean, it takes forever to grow a sprout or something, and then it grows like exponentially within a year. So, yes, I to wrap that thought up, it's like taking this step simply and practically, because most of our experience in life up until this point, we've just been consumed in the past programming of our lives. And to turn the light forward rather than back is is a massive shift in and of itself.
And it starts here.
Yeah, it all starts there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how much time we got? We're kind of wrapping up here. Um, awareness. Awareness is the epicenter of being able to grasp where you are in life, right? It's the ability to know where you're standing right now, what thoughts are going through your head, what you're experiencing in life, and what you're choosing in the moment. Let's
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about that, and then let's have some closing thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll be more to come on awareness for sure. Probably multiple
What
episodes.
let's say, like, just like, let's do a little, like, just simplified. What is awareness?
Yeah. So awareness is becoming, looking at the components of life, especially the internal components. Awareness is being able to see those things without being inside of those things, especially
Without
thoughts.
attachment.
It's yeah, yes, without attachment, realizing that you are aware of them, you are not them. Like to be aware of
Yes.
something is literally to be aware that you are not that thing. It's easier to do with what we would call the more external aspects of life, money, body, possessions, lifestyle, even relationships. It's more difficult to do with thoughts and emotions and beliefs. It's so easy, and that's a big part of that, the past programming, those thoughts that can drive our life. And so typically when I'm talking about awareness, I'm usually meaning more like being aware of your thoughts and your emotions. The more aware you are, the more clear you are that you are not them. You're able to see those things and perceive them, and then you can decide. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's what it really is. That's why awareness is the epicenter, because the more aware you are of them, the more you can decide how to be in relationship with them. Without awareness, you're not going to change anything. You'll continue to be unknowingly identified. You know, it's the Jung thing. Everybody quotes Carl Jung. That which you're not conscious of, you it will run your life, and you will call it fate. So, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true. If you're not aware, you're not going to change anything, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The it's the mental construct we all live in is just absolutely fascinating to me, and this will have to be another podcast to delve more into this path of awareness and thought and how thought governs our lives. And interesting enough, how our thoughts, there's an immediate reaction generally that goes down into the next level of like emotion and sensation, and how that is the binding factor to that thought that then constructs reality. Um, but let's just say that awareness is feeding your energy, is, how should I say it? Awareness is the angle in which you're perceiving the thought and directing your energy. So let's leave it there for right now, because we don't have too much more time, and I don't want to open up too many cans of worms here. So let's wrap this up with how we can apply vision work to our lives, like how we can just roughly start. What would be your advice, and then I'll give some of mine.
Yeah, if someone who's watching this is feeling stuck and feeling like they're looking for that purpose, they're looking for that vision, what I would recommend is something practical is create a space. I'm talking 10 minutes in the morning. 10 minutes and create a space where you've got that time, you can be in a quiet place, and use it to imagine something new, a new possibility that you haven't seen. That simple. When you imagine something new, then you might find yourself having a lot of fun, and you might get a lot of energy that you haven't felt in a while, because you're stepping outside of those past experiences. So create a space, 10 minutes in the morning, try it for a week, come back, and the doc will check in on you.
Yeah, I think that's great. I wouldn't add too much more to that. I would say um, that imagining is something that we are all born naturally to do as children, and through adulthood and through conditioning, we forget about it, or
Yeah.
we let go of it, but not actually realizing that it's so vital. It's so vital because that gives us almost a purpose, like being able to think of something different than what we're currently experiencing, and like being able to actually believe that to be possible. It creates hope and faith. And you have to, well, actually, I should say it creates hope. And then you have to have faith that your imaginations actually have value, extreme value. As you walk the path more in life, you'll realize how important they actually are.
Yeah.
So, by going through this practice, we have to understand that anything in life takes time, takes commitment, and takes discipline. And this is a fun one to do. This is genuinely a very exciting thing to do. Close your eyes. It's another thing I would say is obviously do this with eyes closed and a relaxing environment. Close off to the sensory, your senses to the physical world. Forget about it all. Go inside, observe what's happening inside. Even if it's negative things, whatever. Just observe them. And then begin to cultivate beautiful thoughts, beautiful visions of whatever it is. You can start small, and inevitably you can start to get to the place of envisioning exactly what you want in your future. And if your awareness falls away, just bring it back. Like an active meditation, essentially. But it's almost like eating healthy for the first time. Like if you've been eating junk food and shit food your whole life, and then you eat healthy, it's like, oh, this feels kind of uncomfortable and weird. But after time, you'll see how it's like, whoa, why haven't we been doing this, for a much longer time? Why hasn't this
Yes.
been the natural
Yes.
state?
Yeah. Awesome, man. That's great. Let's leave it there. More to come for sure. I'm so excited, and especially to get Branton here as well. Yeah, we'll be coming at you every week and developing this thing as we go. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and hopefully we provide a great deal of value for people.
Yes.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. See ya.